Aloha mai kako. Good morning, one and all. Ke ola Tengan here for Light Alchemy High Quantum Wizardry. We are going into week number 4, going further and deeper in the investigations of how we can manifest our magic and the reality of our dreams. And so it is Sunday. We're doing our Zoom right now. Going to be talking a little bit about moving further now, deeper into our intuitive talents and going further than with our embodied genius. Our genius, when we talk about the genius, it really is something that we want to have some context for. And so in looking at our genius, it's essentially our place in time and space. And we can kind of look at it sort of like an ecological system, that every element, every animal, every plant plays a part in this dynamic, interconnected system that helps to create a robust social, in our case, ecology of sorts. And so it's very purposeful. Everything has a purpose. Every drop of water, every grain of sand, every root, every plant. And when we look at that, in the absence of one of these elements, one of these components, we realize that the system is affected by it. Now, the thing about it is we're going through this very interesting period right now where there is a huge shift. And that shift is going from who it is that we have created ourselves to be and moving into our own process of becoming. Now, that question then comes, well, becoming what? And so as we look at that further, kind of exploring this whole becoming, the beingness that we most embody is really what we're moving into. And so when we look at that embodied genius, that is the cross section of our archetypal patterns, our intuitive talents, our core values, and our transferable skills. Now, we spent a lot of time in the context of what we're talking about within the first 3 weeks of quantum wizardry, looking at that intuitive talent piece, because we want to be very clear on that. The reason is our intuitive talents are skill sets that we've developed, and really the work that we do is largely tied to this. Our abilities, if you will. These are tools that we can utilize as we express what our embodied genius is. Now, with that being said, our archetypal patterns are these principalities, if you will, that work through us. And so as we look at shifting into this week, we're going to be going further, bringing in that component more so with our archetypal patterns as we go deeper within our intuitive talents. So what that means is we're going to start to really segment in terms of those intuitive areas, having very specific exercises for the kinesthetic, very specific exercises for the psychic, the empath, and the energetic. Now, as we go further with this, we're going to bring in all those other components as well. We're going to start to then really reorient ourselves, right? We just pass through the lion's gate, right? So this energy of fire, of our desire, of our inspirations, of, dare I say, our purpose has been sparked. We have lit that fuse. And now as we go further with that, then we're going to be going more and more specific. And as we do, we're going to become more both relevant in terms of the exercises for each and every one of us and entering into a greater degree of reverence, meaning a deep, soulful respect, connection, and ultimately alignment in everyday life. And that's going to be the trickiest part, right? We talked a few days ago in terms of the whole concept of ritual and routine, right? How our daily routines establish and reinforce a feedback loop. Now, if that feedback loop is working for you, living life of fulfillment, purpose, prosperity, and abundance, then terrific. You've got something figured out. For most people, though, there is a disconnect, or rather, a gap of where we are in our lives now and where it is that we want to be. To bridge that gap, that's where those rituals come into play, interrupting that feedback loop so we can create something new. Now, as we look at that, then going further, particularly with this week, into very specific exercises for each of the intuitive types, and we really start to bring in those other aspects as well with our our archetypal patterns, our core values, and our transferable skills. Flash forward 3 weeks from now, we're going to be ending off with a very strong connection to who we are, what it is that we are capable of doing, how that plays a bigger part in the broader, bigger social and spiritual ecology that is, and how to transition then into creating the lifestyle of our dreams. All right, so as we go further with this, then one of the things that we really want to look at is establishing that practice as our process and our process as a practice, being able to enter into that place of both relevancy and reverence, and going further in terms of not just connecting to these aspects, but going further into a place of alignment. Now, what we want to cover today, then, I have my little sip here. I know it's a little early, the Christmas mug. However, it's really nice and big, so it carries the capacity of what I like to drink in the morning. What we want to look at is really moving into. I spent many years as a personal trainer, and we would, with my clients and I, would work upon developing a larger, bigger vision, if you will. We would break that down into some subcomponents, and then how does that relate to everyday life, and how then can my action today tie into those bigger systems for success, and then ultimately the fulfillment of an inspired vision. And so it goes both ways. What we're going to be doing from here on out is looking at that, and particularly looking at several components that's going to help with that. We want to be able to connect to, whether it's a matter of an intention, whether it's a matter of our purpose, whether it's a matter of ourself. In connecting, then we're better able to nourish. As we nourish, then what we're able to do is we're able to provide, very much like a new seedling, the water, the nutrients, the things that will help continue our process of growth, right? Moving forward from there, then comes movement. We're stimulating a certain degree of momentum, right? Often we get into a place of inertia and stillness, which is terrific, and then we want to create and generate and be generative with our actions. So movement comes into play. We start to build on that. Now, as we build on that, we want to get into a place of alignment. And that place of alignment means that we've taken these different aspects, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of self, and we've been able to create a feeling of cohesion, of coherence, of connectedness. And not just that, but then able to express it. Now, as we find that outlet for our expression, we want to then be able to move into exactly that aspect of expression, much more free flow and entering into a state of flow. Now, as we go through these 5 components of our embodied genius program, we're going to be attending to all these aspects of self. We want to be able to open up, say, for example, and using particularly our intuitive talents as a support for our internal and then also external expression in terms of where we are with our alignment, right? So I said previously that I'm an energetic kinesthetic. So I'm a caster, a sorcerer, a bender. I'm not quite sure what the best name for that cross section is, but working on it. So coming from a place of pure energy and consciousness straight into an outlet of expression into our physicality. And so as that happens then, with those primary and secondary, my tertiary and quaternary then are psychic and empathic. And so certain things that I do in terms of the connect is to be able to connect with myself at those primary areas that are more foremost in my mind. That's where certain things like intention setting and meditation really works for me. Now, as I get into that aspect of nourishment, areas that I, most desire to be nourished, comes into the play of my emotional well-being, of my mental openness and acuity. As we go into that, then further creating that movement, right? Sort of like a swinging of the pendulum. Want to see where I am in terms of that place of balance and be able to create more of a steady rhythm. Because as that happens, then as I am emotionally in a place of well-being and connectedness, as I continue to stimulate my own learning, openness, and creativity, then that helps and supports in bolstering then those other aspects of my physicality in terms of, my own physical health and vitality, but then also that energetic aspect, that spiritual piece where I'm actually being in a better place of alignment because I am looking at all of these pieces together as a whole total system and area of alignment. Now, when that happens, then that's when the expression just happens. It's not a matter of attempting to force or to trigger. It just happens naturally and organically. Now, that's where really letting our process become our practice really comes into play, because as our process then becomes a practice, what we're able to do is we're able to use our current circumstances, our state of being, to be able to move into a place of expression, of generative and creative outlets. And as that just happens, it happens in a state of flow. And that's absolutely the way to go, because when we're in that state of flow, things just happen spontaneously, and yet we can still focus and direct it. Things happen in a way that ultimately is in our best interest, yet often beyond our own perception, because there is a larger, bigger perspective that we're a part of that allows all these things to happen. And so we're going to be looking specifically at creating and generating a program for here on out. And the program is going to attend to all aspects of self, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. I'll go a little bit more into those aspects in terms of the 4-body system and what I call full body alchemy this week. And we're going to start to really work on tuning into what that vision is. Macro level, so what is it that we're working towards? Meso level or cycle, are those intermediary systems? And then micro, how does that relate to everyday life? And how can I best continue to exercise that degree as a practice, or in this case, sort of like a personal training program, right? We want to have our cardio coming in. We want to have our resistance training, our flexibility, hydration, and nutrition, all of these aspects coming into play so that we can have a very comprehensive system, really a container that allows us to be held, that intention, that energy, and again, that embodiment. All right, so that is it for now. We're going to be going further and deeper into this. One of the things we're going to look at is our time allocation, because our time allocation is really important. 168 hours per week. How are you spending yours? All right, that's it for now. Love and loyalty to you all. Take care of each other, and off we hope.